Hi, I'm Tony Wilson, and welcome to the first edition of the Third Umpire, an internet Ashes preview show with a difference, in the sense that it's the only Ashes punditry show going around where someone actually knows the result of the series. Australia get up 3-1, draw in Melbourne. Ricky Ponting takes the catch of the summer to win the series on the 4th of January in Sydney. Two people who don't believe that I discovered a flux capacitor and have travelled through time to actually see the result of the series are my two special guests. One of them needs little introduction. He was a champion in the Australian and Victorian middle orders, and he lays claim to the greatest subcontinental chunder in history. Please welcome Dean Jones.
Yeah, I just wiped my mouth there a bit. Well, it was a good chuck.
And our second guest, he writes for The Age. He's twice been awarded the Victorian Cricket Writer of the Year. Please welcome Michael Gleeson.
Thanks very much, Tony. I haven't done quite the continental chuck, but I'll work on it.
Now, I've just made my big call, a 3-1. I had the benefit of a time machine. But do you think people are losing the plot over this series? We were confident going in England and lost it. The odds are, I think the 4-0 and 5-0 are the most favoured results on centre bet. Is that just crazy stuff?
Well, personally, I think it probably will be a 3-1, but it'll be a lot tighter than you think. It'll take the Australians pretty well most of the 5 days for most of the games to knock them over. I just hope on the first day's play that the coaching staff keep the balls and the cones away from Glenn McGrath. If they can do that, they'll go close to winning the series.
And Michael?
Well, like last time, where do they lose? Where do they lose this one test? You're probably being a bit more pessimistic than others in saying one, but where do they lose the test? I think if it is going to go a blowout, it's going to be in Australia's way. I can't see England wiping the floor with Australia. So I tend to favour a fairly tight series.
Doesn't it just take 1-200 from Flintoff or Peterson and suddenly we're on the back foot in a test and we could easily drop one?
Personally, I just think bowlers win your test matches. And if Harmison brings his A game and it doesn't get too homesick from Newcastle, which is a town that you really get homesick of, don't you? And Flintoff bring their A games. The two guys are bowling over 140 clicks. You've got just under a third of a second reaction time. Now, if they get the ball in the right areas, yeah, sure, anything can happen.
And Michael, is Australia Dad's army? I guess that's the sledge that's out there for the Aussies.
Yeah, there's some merit in that. I think that England will certainly try and pick away at that sort of scab. And I think that they'll try and do a Gillespie with McGrath. I reckon they can smell blood with McGrath, and they think that he's ageing and they're going to get after him. You could see a number of sides did that in the Champions Trophy. They thought, he's a weak spot, we're going to chase him. Now, the conditions actually suited the bowlers over there, so he was able to hold his own. But I get the real sense that they're going to get after McGrath and try and knock him out of, basically end his career within a couple of tests.
Now, no Ashes series would be complete without some sort of secret weapon. Warney usually makes noises about a mystery ball. That seems to be missing this series, but the flipper might be back apparently.
Yeah, I think he's just gone into the dungeon and whatever you want to call it downstairs underneath his house and blown the dust off a few vintage bottles, and he said, I'll try the flipper this year. It worked a few years back, and well, he's been asking for that to come back for a while, Michael, but he hasn't bowled it that well. He claims he is, but we'll wait and see.
I like the fact that he said that he has kept it secret, and it's going to be a surprise to them when he says that he's going to bowl it in the first over.
So
in his first over. They'll never know.
So secret weapons are now so publicised that they're only guessing which of the 6 balls the weapon's going to arrive on.
Well, we've got to be a bit careful on that because we've been looking for weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. We still haven't found it, so we'll wait and see on that, won't we?
What about the captaincy? We've got Freddie Flintoff in his first series as captain of England. He's combining the all-rounders role with obviously the ultimate responsibility for the team.
Look, Sir Garfield Sobers a half-decent captain. Richie Banner was brilliant at it, wasn't he? And look, it's just one of those things. I was in the Indian tour recently. I commentated on that tour. The secret to a captain is the fact that you've got to have your whole squad quite willing to put their careers on the line. And they're quite willing to go through a brick wall for him. They have a huge amount of respect for him. So I'm expecting he'll do a pretty good job.
What about Ricky? He's had a fantastic test run of form since the Ashes. He's had some dodgy one-day form recently. But the Barmy Army of all organisations are saying they're going to target him and his temper. Is he one who's going to put up with is he going to get through the rigours of a series like this?
Oh, what a credible bunch of critics too. I mean, gee whiz, the Barmy Army's after me. The interesting thing for Ricky is that he had, the series that he lost the Ashes. Still, Richie Benno thinks that qualifies him as the best captain Australia's had. But well, I don't know how you get to that conclusion, but his captaincy since has been good. But equally, they haven't been challenged in nearly the way they were in England. Now, what happens with Ricky when the heat's really on, and when do you revert to captaincy by consensus that occurred in England with Warney wanting to get in his ear as well, and just quite who was leader? It could well be that the last 18 months of experience has really steeled him to know how he captains and how he manages this group of men.
Now, Watson's missed with a hamstring, hasn't come up, and Michael Clark comes into the side. Another chance for him, the man who likes motorbikes rather than playing golf. What do you think? Is he going to have a good series, Michael?
Well, it'll be interesting how he goes. I was so disappointed with him in the last Ford Ranger Cup. His team did the right job for him. They knocked him over Tasmania for 160 odd. He's had a chance to lost Cattage early, go out and have a good net, get himself in test mode, and what's he do? Bats like an absolute millionaire and plays shots all over the place. Now, I think that's just dumb. He should have just gone out there and got a nice little 80 not out and just say to the selectors, I'm ready, just in case Watson doesn't make it. Now, his efforts and thought process of last week was disgraceful. He needs to pick it up.
Thank you, Michael and Dean, for coming in. And thank you for joining us. Join us next week for the preview for the second test. And in the meantime, if you can collect your video and photos from around the test scene, send them in to your Age and Sydney Morning Herald sites and we'll be putting them up for you. So thanks for joining us and we'll see you next week. Hi, I'm Tony Wilson. Welcome to the Third Umpire. In the comic strip Fatty Finn, the lead character sits up all night listening to Don Bradman spifflicate the Poms in 1930. Well, spifflicate is about what Ricky Ponting's ageing Australians did to Freddie Flintoff's men at the Gabba last week. And to discuss the form of the two sides and to preview the second test in Adelaide, I'd like to welcome my first guest, the man who told Curtly Ambrose what wristband could go where, Dean Jones. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Tony. How do you spell spifflicate?
Well, I think it's only got the one F, but I'm not sure, Dino. And for our second guest, we've got an award-winning age cricket writer who wrote an article on day 4 of the first test saying the lion rises from the ashes, so he saw some positives there. Welcome, Greg Baum.
Still pretty ash covered by the end of the day, but yeah, thanks, Tony. Good to be here.